Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to Charles and for Don for affording us this opportunity, and to this panel. I'm privileged and honored to spend some time with you, and also want to thank you for your service, and in addition, thank CED for bringing this very important and timely topic to the city of Philadelphia. For those that are Philadelphians, on the cheesesteak analogy that was just offered by my associate to the right, it's wit or wit out. We had a presidential candidate, I believe, one time visit our South Philly establishments and had trouble with that precise way to order a cheesesteak in Philadelphia. So I think with the moments I have with you before we begin questions, I will offer a perspective from the grassroots and from a practitioner of job creation, and then perhaps offer a reflection or two as a citizen, having heard the discussion to date. First of all, our mission at the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce is very precise, very simple, and that is to attract, retain, and grow jobs for companies and citizens in the Greater Philadelphia region. And listening to Andy's comments in terms of this revolution that we're in and how we create economic activity in this revolution is what we give a great deal of thought to day in and day out, particularly as it relates to the first part of our mission in terms of attracting companies and enterprises to this region. First, and it's a very important first principle, is we believe that regions compete for economic activity globally and not necessarily locales any longer. And we believe then for us that's the Greater Philadelphia region as defined by 11 counties from Mercer County, New Jersey, down through southern New Jersey into Delaware, the city of Philadelphia, and the collar counties that rim the area. And so as a practitioner in the day-to-day, I can tell you that it's a hard row to hoe. And it's hard because in the business attraction business, there are so many variables that are beyond your control. Now, I will tell you, this enterprise, which we have dubbed Select Greater Philadelphia, has been very busy lately. We have provided close to 36 confidential tours of companies just in the last 30 days alone that are looking at specific locations in this region to grow and expand and set up shop. Since the fall, our response to proposals from corporate relocation consultants and other folks that are making these decisions in companies has almost doubled in terms of volume. And when we respond to a corporation, what we do on a confidential basis is provide highly customized data so that we're presenting this region on a factual basis so that they can then make a distinction or not. But all too often, the decisions that are being made, oftentimes by the multinational corporation, have no bearing necessarily on the facts of the case as we present them on this region, but to broad external economic situations and variables that are beyond our control. So we've got to attack this problem nationally because this is something that is bigger than the Greater Philadelphia region, bigger than the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce, that has to be addressed now and not later, because that's a very significant uncontrollable variable that we would like to have some certainty around. It's absolutely critical. We all know the reason why there's been a slight uptick in the unemployment rate that was announced last week, and just the general view, and we measure this pretty carefully in this region on an economic basis, is there's some large macroeconomic policy issues at the domestic level in Washington, D.C. that remain unanswered that is creating this undercurrent of uncertainty in the private sector, and therefore is creating the dynamic where risk isn't being taken, folks aren't being hired, investments aren't being made, and of course the extension of tax cuts and unemployment benefits is just a very short-term explanation or example of that macroeconomic domestic policy uncertainty. But this cuts much deeper than that. And therefore, as a citizen, listening to this discussion, I couldn't help but think to ask myself, where is the national will to make this so? And it's a national will that I think with each coming year will become harder to find, a divining rod that isn't just all wrapped in the flag of patriotism any longer, but has more pragmatic aspects of why we are where we are as a country, or why we cannot afford to allow further political, special interest, and bureaucratic delay around this issue. And I took Andy's words to heart because I really do think we're at a different place politically and economically. But as a citizen, you can become very cynical very quickly when we tend to get bogged down in very, very narrow interests that then grind a process to a point where you only ever really get something done in the margins. We have a legislative body here in the city of Philadelphia that a former mayor here once dubbed, Democratic Mayor Bill Green, the worst legislative body on the face of the earth. And I don't know if that's a fair assessment of council, and I wasn't around when he made that assessment. But just to have a conversation on a macroeconomic level with a legislative body and City Hall on what are fundamental principles for free enterprise, and that the fact that free enterprise is foundational to a well-run government and the future of a city jurisdiction is a challenge. We spent a considerable amount of time in grassroots advocacy, something we call our Relay Initiative. And I ask you to check out relayphilly.com, where we are trying to educate a broader group of citizens on why legislative initiatives ought to spawn entrepreneurship in this city and not do harm to that. At that point, you could argue, well, the Chamber of Commerce is just another one of those narrow special interests, because there's probably arguments on the other way of that. So the pox is on our house as well in that regard. But as we think about this discussion, as Charles begins to tee up the questions, the one I would have is, how do we collectively find our national will on this point so that action occurs devoid of interest, overarching concern for our future economic viability in a way that makes sense? When we communicate at a grassroots level in the city with Relay, we spent a lot of time talking to 20-somethings. And I was struck by the data that suggests that we have a limited amount of time to deal with this. And no offense to all of us in this room that are north of, say, age 30, but the petition exercise and everything that this organization is all about may be better served to be targeted towards someone who's in their early 20s today, because that's really what this is all about ultimately, future citizens in this country understanding the revolution, as Andy described, and the absolute fundamental requirement that a free society absolutely requires economic vitality and activity.